Welcome to The Kingdom, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics and a land defended by Sir Ross's Knights. Now here's your host, Rocco Geppi.
Hello again, Knights Nation. Rocco Geppi here for the Kingdom Podcast, and this is Season 2, Episode 6. We're keeping it sports related today, but we're going to take a slightly different path as we talk about something that, we kind of hear a lot about here in the athletics department, and when we're at the games or out and about with our colleagues, and that is, how do you get into athletics as a career? And for a lot of us, like myself, sometimes you're just lucky enough to piddle around as a freelance journalist for a decade plus, and then you happen to play all your ducks correctly, and you fall into a position that you love. But moreover, there are folks that are doing this the way that it's kind of been designed in a lot of places, and it's becoming more and more popular, and that is by obtaining a degree in sport management. Joining me today, my guest today, I'm lucky to have with me is Craig Newton. He's the wellness department coordinator at the Catonsville campus and the sport management coordinator, new associate of arts degree available here at CCBC. Craig, I really appreciate you joining me, and welcome to the Kingdom Podcast.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Rocco.
So this is some exciting stuff going on. I know a lot has happened, and I'm sure have added some gray hairs to folks that have been doing this along the way. But start from the beginning. What was the reason for adding this degree path, and when did the process really start?
Well, the reason we decided to go ahead and develop this career path is because we kept hearing a lot from the advisors that students were wondering if we had a program.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we heard about that from the advisors, the more we thought, hey, this might be a good idea to go ahead and start something like this. So it started kind of about 3 years ago. We started talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was a little over 2 years ago that we started the actual process. And of course, it just launched this fall. So it was kind of a long process, but not necessarily a real long process. But it was basically because there was a lot of interest being shown in a program like this.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, like you and I have talked off air before about the number of interns that we've had, and our first priority is always to take CCBC interns. It's just been that in this general field, we haven't had that available to us, and so we've reached out to Towson is our biggest provider of sport management interns, and of course we've had some from Goucher and other colleges. But to have this in our own backyard is really going to be something cool. And 2 year, I know it probably felt like longer than 2 years, but a 2 year process to get an associate's degree, passed through really isn't, if you think about it, and I'm sure you have, really isn't that long. But I'm sure there were some hurdles along the way. What were the biggest hurdles for you in the process?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles was the paperwork, because there's there's different we have to do a paperwork process for our internal paperwork, but then of course, because Maryland Higher Education Commission is the one that's going to be approving programs, we have to go through this very long paperwork process, and it was probably a 30-page document that I ended up having to develop for the different types of information, and looking up the different information. There was a lot of research involved in what jobs are in the field and how many students in four-year schools are doing this, and just the paperwork was really the biggest thing. But there was also the time crunch, because if you don't get certain types of paperwork in for new programs by a certain time of the year, then you have to wait a whole nother year before you can get it done. And I was actually last November, I was on pins and needles, because I didn't think we were going to actually get the paperwork in time, and we were going to have to wait until 2021 to actually get it out. But we finally got it through. But it was really the paperwork and that time crunch, just having to meet deadlines.
I can imagine that, and I think about some of the things that I've done with grants and things of that nature, and that paperwork is always going to be the catch. It's it's necessary, and you can't avoid it. At the same time, you can't rush through it, because if you leave a T uncrossed or an I not dotted, that could mess up a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
So you guys do get the paperwork done in time. You get everything in. Not only is it approved, but it's approved, and you guys start it this fall of 2020. So as we sit here now, how many students do you have in the degree, or taking classes that are a part of the degree at this time?
Well, as far as students that I've been in contact with and helping them with their class, setting up their classes and everything, there was four of them,
Hmm.
but we have the classes that we actually have some classes that are cross listed with our kinesiology program, and the funny thing was is that one of the classes actually had more of the sports management students in it than the kinesiology students, which was kind of shocking to me because, but it shocking, but not necessarily shocking, because there was that all that interest that was being shown to the advisors. But so we have between the two classes that are cross listed, we have I believe it's around 15 students that are
Hmm.
interested in the program. So, and of course, four of those are the ones that I've been in contact with. So,
Right.
above and beyond who I've been in contact with, we've got 10 or 12 of them.
Very good. What have been some of the challenges of starting a new program like this during COVID, and what are some of the pluses and minuses of that? I know you and I have talked about it before. That for example, there are more online things going on than originally planned. But you can actually look at that in a positive way as far as the availability of the program going forward. So, talk about those challenges and how you and your team have been able to overcome them.
Well, the biggest thing is I haven't been able to promote the program the way I wanted to.
Hmm.
Because I had a lot of plans when I was after everything was approved in November last year and through the start of the spring semester before the pandemic hit. I had a lot of plans over the summer. I was going to be going to a lot of the four-year schools and promoting the program, saying, "Hey, we have this program now. I don't know if you've heard about this, but we've got this program now. Here's this is the curriculum in the program, and things like that." And I haven't been able to do really any of that at all because well, we just can't go from place to place like we used to at this point.
Sure.
So that's really been the biggest challenge with the pandemic. Academic wise, it's really not that much of a problem because I mean, we're college professors; we can adapt,
Sure.
and so that's not really a problem. We do a lot of synchronous classes now where they're face to face, but they're face to face virtually. So we're not really meeting in a classroom; we're meeting on a computer, but we're
Right.
meeting at a specific time. So we really haven't had a whole lot of problems as far as academics goes. It's just really the promotion has been a problem.
Mhm.
I've been really wanting to get to schools and talk to the people that run the sports management programs at the four-year schools so that they know we're there and they know that that we can get students to them, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was kind of um the uh the driving force behind this episode, is that and I popped on the phone to you right away as soon as I found out this thing had started, and we wanted to do something to help you guys out with that, and get the word out there, as I've said the other day when we were talking. Later in this episode, we're going to have the sport management internship coordinator from Towson University, Dr. Jessica Minkove, on, and one of my current interns, to talk about their program and how this is working in a remote atmosphere. But yeah, we definitely want to get the word out on this, and continue to help you guys out. Talking about the remote nature, and I apologize to put you on the spot here. With everything that you're learning from this degree and being remote, are there talks to make this available at the other campuses, because right now the face-to-face, when we're in normal circumstances, this is being housed at Catonsville to kind of get things kicked off. Are there plans to make it available at the other campuses a little bit quicker than normal, or are we kind of in a wait and see?
Right now, we're in a wait and see with that. Right now, we're still actually developing some of the coursework for
Mhm.
the program because obviously quite a bit of the coursework was already here when we're talking about things like accounting courses and economics courses and things like that.
Sure.
But the courses that I have developed for the program itself have actually some of them haven't been taught yet.
Hmm.
So right now, in the spring, I'm going to be teaching a new course that's fundamentals of coaching, and so that's going to be actually done synchronously by computer. Uh, but as far as having face-to-face coursework available on the other campuses right now, that's kind of on hold as far as doing any of that because we really need to get the courses dialed in first, really,
Sure.
before we can um, start offering them on other campuses.
Understood. I'm here talking with Craig Newton, the wellness department coordinator at the Catonsville campus, and he's the sport management coordinator for the Associate of Arts degree at CCBC. We're going to hit a quick break, and when we come back, we have a few more questions for Craig. We appreciate you guys sticking around for this interview and for episode number 6 here in season 2 of the Kingdom Podcast, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics.
Let's talk about college.
Times have changed.
We've changed.
I refuse to accept an education that comes with a mountain of crippling debt.
No longer will I stay stuck in a job because college has no time for me.
I will not confuse a fancy name for a quality education. Sorry, Pops.
Let's talk practical.
Let's talk flexible.
Let's talk smart education.
Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online at ccbcmd.edu and see what you can be.
We are back. Rocco Geppi here on the Kingdom Podcast, Season 2, Episode 6, and I'm with Craig Newton, the Wellness Department Coordinator at the Catonsville campus. And folks, don't freak out. We're not crossing into enemy lines. He is also the Sport Management Coordinator for the CCBC Associate of Arts degree. So very very relevant to our world, even though Craig might not be a knight. With this program, you're kind of an unofficial knight. We're gonna bring you into the fold because this is beneficial for all of us.
I'll take it.
So talk about the short-term and long-term goals of this degree. And by short-term, I mean, what do you want to accomplish in the first year or two? And then long-term, where do you see this degree going?
Well, right now, the short term is to get the classes rolled out that have been developed for the program. Several of the classes haven't been taught yet. They have been developed, so they are there. It's just that they haven't been rolled out as far as being taught yet, and we're rolling one out each semester. And really, a lot of it is just getting the word. My main goal, really, in the first couple of years, is to really get the word out to the four-year schools that hey, we do exist. Our students are going to be ready to come and see you guys here in a relatively short time. So and that kind of thing. That's really more. It's more just kind of getting things cemented into place for the first year or two. Is really what it kind of comes down to.
Talk about what students can expect from this degree. So 2 years from now, you have your first graduating classes of this degree. You would assume, regardless of how many it is, if, hopefully this original 4 will still be around and we'll get that AA. There's several things, that we know you can do with an AA. So with an associate's degree in sport management, kind of give us some ideas of what you're preparing students to do with that degree.
Well, with an associate's degree, that it's a little bit more limited than if you have a full-on bachelor's degree, but there are things you can do. Is coaching is one of the things that can be done with an associate's degree. Being game day officials, depending on really in any sport. We're talking about football, basketball, umpires, and baseball, that kind of thing. Um, and a lot of it is going to be internships and entry level positions into things like maybe even sports marketing or event coordination, recreation program, uh, uh, supervisors, coordinators, that kind of thing, entry level in positions like that. After the 2-year degree and then moving on into the 4-year degree, then it opens up um, a much bigger, wider array of positions that would be available.
So for somebody that's not a quote unquote traditional student, is it fair to say that once they obtain this AA degree, if they decide, hey, look, I got to work while finishing my bachelor's degree, is it safe to say that they could find some employment in in the career field of sports or athletics, to work in, whether it's part-time, full-time, blended, whatever, while they work to obtain their bachelor's degree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't think they'd have any trouble getting employment in recreation facilities. I don't think they'd have any trouble getting employment in possibly in the health club industry, that kind of thing. Um, Having been in the health club industry in the past myself, a lot of the positions that are available as far as management type of things don't actually even require much of a degree at all. And if you have one, that kind of gives you a leg up. So, um,
Very
yeah,
cool.
they would definitely be able to find some type of employment, and especially if they're still going to school to finish up their bachelor's degree,
Hmm.
the employment that they get is probably they're going to be looking at that and thinking, okay, well, this person is somebody that can move up in the organization, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, very exciting stuff because there are some degrees that you just can't do that with, and to be able to have a little bit of confidence that, hey, I can work and still continue to work on my undergrad degree, and you're probably more likely to get some flexibility out of your employer, if you're working, like you said, in the health club industry or in recreation, that, hey, boss, I got this class that I have to take in person. And they're probably apt to be a little bit more flexible, knowing what your career aspirations are.
Yeah, I would think so because if I was in that kind of a position where I was hiring somebody uh, that was aspiring to get more education, I would absolutely give them a little bit more leeway so that they would
Mhm.
be able to take the classes that they need.
Excellent stuff. I really appreciate you being here today, Craig. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that we didn't talk about?
Well, there was one thing I wanted to mention about long-term goals with the program is we're actually one of the things that we are moving towards is making the degree also fully online.
Excellent. Very cool.
And what I'm doing is, like I said, I have the fundamentals of coaching class that's going to be available in the spring
Hmm.
for the first time. And what I have been doing is after I teach the class the one semester, then I develop the online section of the class as well. So we're looking at making it fully online so that we don't have the problems with you know campus specific courses and things like that.
Right. Very cool stuff. Really exciting times now. We hope that the program continues to build. Craig, thank you again for being on the show. We learned a lot today, and we wish you good luck with this and all the future endeavors with the Sport Management Associate of Arts degree.
No problem. Thanks, Rocco. I appreciate you having me on.
You got it. That's Craig Newton, the Wellness Department Coordinator at the Catonsville campus, and he is the Sport Management Coordinator for the Associate of Arts degree here at CCBC. And we're going to step aside. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When I return, we're going to have the other portion of this episode. We're going to talk to some more folks in the sport management industry. You're listening to the Kingdom Podcast, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics.
Let's talk about college. Times have changed, and I say no to an education at the cost of crippling debt, because paying off student loans for the next 30 years is not in my financial plans.
Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online and see what you can be.
Times have changed, and I will not stay stuck in a job because college has no time for me. I will not let a limited schedule limit me.
Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online and see what you can be.
We are back on the Kingdom Podcast, and this week we're talking about degrees in sport management. Just finished up my conversation with CCBC's Associate of Arts Sport Management Coordinator, Craig Newton, and now I'm joined by Dr. Jessica Minkove, Towson University Associate Professor and Sport Management Internship Coordinator, along with Demetrius Anderson. He's a senior at Towson University Sport Management major, and he is our fall intern this year. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks, Rocco. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Rocco. Excited to be here.
All right. And of course, we're going to get to meet Demetrius here in just a little bit, but some of you have already seen Demetrius throughout this semester doing his interviews with our student athletes in our Fresh Faces campaign. You will continue to see those, and now it's time to get a little bit more information on this degree we call sport management. First, Dr. Minkove, let's get to know you a little bit. Talk about your responsibilities, what they include at Towson, and how long you've done them.
Absolutely. Thank you. So currently I'm, as you noted, an associate professor of sport management at Towson. So in that regard, any academic position is going to be threefold. So primarily teaching, scholarship, and service. Part of my teaching, includes my role as internship coordinator at Towson. And I have been in the role of professor for 14 and a half years. I'm in my 15th year at Towson, so it's been some time. And I have been in the role of internship coordinator for approximately 12 years, maybe 13 at this point. And I took over from the individual who developed the initial internship program at Towson, and I'll talk to you a little bit later, but we've evolved what that program looks like and better to serve industry and student needs over the time in my role as both internship coordinator and as faculty at Towson.
Yeah, I know that I've seen a little bit of this as we've been, partnered up for about 6 years now. But in your time as internship coordinator, talk about some of the changes that you've seen. I know one of the biggest ones that jump off to me, and that's just because of the position that I'm in, is that the jump a few years ago on the internship hours. But what have been like maybe a couple of the biggest changes you've seen?
Absolutely. And the hours is a big part of that. So as I mentioned, one of my roles as an academic is also scholarship. So in addition to my area of expertise in marketing, this professional development, career readiness piece is very important to me. So I've focused some of my scholarship in that area as well. And through that and my knowledge of the industry and some experiences that I've had previously, I recognized that our students' needs weren't being met with our previous curriculum. Mm-hmm. And in my role as program coordinator, I would say we began these changes around 2012, recognizing this need to shift requirements of our students. And with that, we wanted to do so curricularly. And we began that shift through some research and some supporting evidence that showed that our students were not necessarily getting the experience that they needed. And so we went from a 3 credit hour, 120 hour on-site internship where students could not concurrently take 2 internships. So we had a requirement of that 120 hours, and we did have an elective of 120 hours, but the students couldn't take them in the same semester. So that was as well challenging for students. So we shifted and moved towards this 300-hour internship, which better met industry needs and was more on par with what other institutions were requiring of students. If you look into other institutions, you'll see that many of them require full-time internships.
Yeah, like Coastal Carolina, for example, I think it's like 480. We had an internship for our intern for our Catonsville campus a few semesters ago, and I believe it's 480, but it's a full-time internship.
Yes, and that is more traditional of sport management programs. We wanted to shift in that direction. However, we also are very cognizant of the Towson student, and we wanted to create an opportunity for greater professional growth and development while still taking that into consideration. So we wanted to, we weren't necessarily comfortable in requiring the full-time internship because a large portion of our students do work as they're going through school. And we wanted to be able to provide that ability for them to maintain that flexibility and continue to support themselves, where a full-time internship wouldn't necessarily allow for that. However, with this curriculum change, we also did put into place the opportunity for a required and elective internship to be taken concurrently. So if a student chooses to, they can complete a full-time internship in the same semester. And so that's been really important for us in kind of our shift in regards to professional development. And with that, and we've talked about this kind of offline, but in this additional piece of professional development and preparedness, we also instituted a pre-internship class, a field experience class, where we do cover career readiness topics such as personal branding, resumes, cover letters, interviewing, LinkedIn, and that does also include, well, not currently, but it includes some on-site work hours requirements. So traditionally that would be 50 hours, and that would be taken as a prerequisite to our internship. As you know, right now, the on-site work isn't necessarily feasible. So while Demetrius will talk a little bit about how he's been able to transition to a remote internship, that piece has been replaced by other pre-professional development activities in the field experience class.
Sure. Yeah, a lot going on. And I think, when people hear sport management degree, I think the attention automatically goes toward athletic departments, parks and recreation, stadium or arena stuff. Give us a little bit of a background to you. Like, how did you land on the path that you are in now, in telling folks how they can maybe get into the academia side of sport management?
Absolutely. And Rocco, I think you're being generous in terms of what people think about when they think about sport management. I think people more often think that they would like to be the GM of a team, or now the Ballers has come out. I think the agency piece has popped back up again. I grew up in the we grew up in the Jerry Maguire era, so that was where people kind of came on that. But those are the most, I think, visible aspects of the business side of sport that people can kind of put a name to. So that's what people come into the degree thinking that they want. So I agree with you that that's what the areas that you mentioned do tend to be areas where individuals end up, but I don't necessarily think that that's what people think. Myself, a little bit about my story. I grew up in the Northeast and decided that I wanted to go to a school that had a big athletics program at that point, not thinking that this is the direction that I wanted to go in. And at that point in time, academia wasn't the direction that I wanted to go in. It wasn't on my radar. I didn't necessarily see this as a potential career outlet or option for me. So I ended up going to school at the University of Florida, studying recreation and parks and recreation, commercial recreation as an undergrad. And with that, doing work with our athletic program, doing work with the, at that point, it was the Gainesville Sports Organizing Committee. It is now the Gainesville Sports Commission. So doing quite a bit of work there throughout my academic career. Working in minor league baseball a little bit, again, through internships, through time between academic pursuits. So I finished up my undergraduate degree there. And my next goal, and the only other academic goal for me at that point, is that my personal intentions were to earn my master's degree. And at that point, I applied for graduate programs. Ended up staying at Florida because I had taken our Intro to Sport Management class and really enjoyed the professor and really enjoyed the class and saw that link. And that was where I ended up getting some of my experience as an undergrad, as well as going to some conferences that were offered locally down in Florida when I was there. So I had a really great experience there. And as I was finishing up my graduate work, Florida developed their doctoral program, which is now, I'm proud to say, a very strong doctoral program in sport management. And, but at that point, they were just starting it, and it was going through curriculum reviews and revisions and going through the state for approval. And so I, was working at that point. I had had a graduate assistantship with, first with our sport and fitness program. So I was teaching group exercise and teaching the academic portion that went with that. So I was getting a little bit of that, teaching experience. I then shifted and worked with our field experience class, which kind of first started to give me that interest in the internship piece, not necessarily from a research perspective at that point, but much more from an applied perspective, and saw the value that it provided to students. And then I also was working with a faculty member that I had taken that intro class with as an undergrad, that encouraged me to continue on and study sport management. I ended up working with him as a research assistant. And through that, this particular faculty member, as well as some of the other faculty members, kept saying, well, have you considered, we've had approval for this doctoral program, consider it. And I was like, oh, no, this is not for me. And, we talk about this quite often, you never know what opportunities might arise, and you never know what path you might end up down. And I said no, probably 5-6 times, until finally I was like, something, maybe this is something worth looking into. I enjoy the research that I do with this particular professor. I enjoy working with students in the capacity that I was able to teach those sport and activity classes. And, I was really passionate about that fieldwork piece. So while it was not in my plan, I thought, hey, what makes up this role are things that I've really enjoyed doing. And it allows me then to provide access and opportunities and educate future sport industry professionals. So it just kind of spoke to me. It was not in my plan. Again, you never know where your plans are going to lead you and what other opportunities might shift your direction. So my direction was shifted. And that's something that I like to share with my students, is that you never know. And it's always important to take opportunities, or at least consider opportunities, because you never know what might lead you down the right path.
Absolutely. It's great advice. We try and convey to our students to, not go through life, especially in academia, with blinders on. You keep your eyes open, keep your options open, and don't be afraid to take chance. So very interesting story, very interesting way along that path to get to where you are now. All right, that is it for part 1 of our sport management degree episode. This is going to be a 2-parter, so check us out on season 2, episode number 7 for the remaining portion of this interview. That link is going to be in the description of this video here on YouTube and on our Facebook link. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at CCBC Essex Sports, and it's important to follow us on YouTube and Facebook, because that's where these videos are going. My special thanks to our guests, Craig Newton from CCBC, Dr. Jessica Minkove, and Demetrius Anderson from Towson University. Again, part 2 of this interview in the description is coming from season 2, episode number 7. As far as season 2, episode number 6, that's all the time we have. We thank you for sticking around to listen to the Kingdom Podcast. We'll see you next time. So long.